welcome Chris Smith to the, I might call it the Emtb podcast, but I haven't decided on that one yet.
Okay.
By all means, I'm open to ideas if you come up with any.
No, that sounds pretty good to me.
Does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
Chris Smith, welcome to the podcast. And I guess the best thing to start off with is for you to just describe who you are. Why should people be listening to you right now?
So I am a 42-year-old mountain bike ambassador for Highbike, riding e-bikes. I've ridden professionally for 25 years now, riding all sorts of styles of mountain bikes, slope style, dirt jump, free ride, e-bike, and all the rest of it. I had a pretty interesting career, so it would be good to have a chat for sure.
42 is important. I think the age is important because it's a lot of people think that being a sponsored rider, being an ambassador is for it's a young boys game, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
And I mean, obviously you've got a pro background and that definitely helps, but it's interesting that you can still continue to work in bikes and be an ambassador at your age, I guess.
Yeah. Definitely one of the senior riders, sure. And as you say, I think the prime for especially the dirt jumping and slope style side of things was definitely late teens to mid 20s, I want to say. And then I think you sort of go out the other side and start riding more traditional mountain biking, like cross country, trail, but then started getting adding some of those tricks to those styles of bikes, so swapping out a bit really.
So, I grew up with bikes. My childhood was spent I actually started riding on my mum's road bike. That was how I properly started riding bikes, and I was building little jumps using bits of wood and bricks, and realized very quickly that I didn't have the right bike for the job. And I think and that for me, then I became obsessed and started buying magazines. And then I think that is probably, buying MBUK, it was probably what got me properly into bikes. What was it for you that turned you from just riding bikes for fun to then starting to take it a little bit more seriously?
So I think I followed pretty much the same path as you. I started with BMX, messing around outside the house, blocks of wood. We used to have a building site, so we used to go ride there and ride. It must have been kind of free ride, I suppose, dropping in these big clay dirt banks and stuff on our BMXs, and we'd build an indoor skate park. We had a ghetto indoor skate park, and then one day, I think my brother come back from a car boot sale, and it was actually, I think it was a Peugeot road bike, but it had been converted into kind of I suppose a gravel bike, what the equivalent of a gravel bike it had. It was a road bike, and it had down tube shifters on it, but it had flat handlebars, the mountain bike stem, cantilever brakes, and that was what started my mountain biking, and we started to go riding off road, and then next thing I brought a Mongoose hardtail. And then it just progressed. We had all the classic, retro bikes from back in the day, like the Zonic DS2 and Cannondale. I used to ride loads of trials, push bike trials, and that's kind of when I got into it seriously, watching, again, sort of the Martins and Hans Ray and MBUK. That was my biggest first love, got me into it, was bike trials, and that's what I rode for probably a big percentage when I first started off riding. And then started riding with a lot of BMXs in town, and then that sort of crossed over to street riding. You'd start adding more speed into the trial stuff and linking stuff with manuals, and then all of a sudden I was on a dirt jump hardtail. Then I went dirt jumping, and then it just progressed from there. And Steve Gill moved to town, and that was a huge thing, having a ride of that caliber, moved to your hometown, and I started hanging around with Steve every single day, riding with him, learning off of him, and then he sort of introduced me to downhill bikes. Free ride began, and it's just that's a long, it's a never-ending story, basically.
That's the one big difference from your experience and mine. It was that I was riding with mates, and we weren't pushing our limits. We weren't pushing any limits whatsoever.
Yeah.
Whereas for you to have been surrounded by riders like Steve Gill, did that really show you what was possible and give you the confidence that maybe this is something I can do?
Yeah, I think Steve was a massive part of my career, and really did open my eyes, one, to being a professional rider, how to do it, and the other thing was we'd just sort of tow each other along. He'd do something, and then I'd do it, then I'd be oh, I've built this new drop, I'd hit it, then Steve would hit it, and then Steve would do some fancy trick off it, then I'd have to. It wasn't like, it was just like leading each other on into some stupid thing. Like we used to do some crazy stuff back in the day, and even like the BMXs I used to ride with, like one of my close friends, Gary, is like a really good BMXer. He's so good, just naturally talented. I used to ride with him all the time, and he would just do insane stuff on his BMX, and I'd just try and mimic it on a mountain bike, and like I'd crash my brains out, but then I might pull it off 1 in 10, and it'd be like climbing a ladder on like a hardtail and a full suspension bike, you know, riding with Steve, riding with Gary. And I used to ride every single day, you know, like after work or after school, on holidays. There wasn't a spare, you know, 2 hours I wouldn't be riding my bike. I used to get up, ride my bike till 10 at night every day.
So what was work before bikes became work?
So work for me, so I left school when I was 16. I worked in a silver factory, which was like, we used to make like jewelry boxes, picture frames, all that stuff on like, you used to get like rolls of silver from a factory, and you basically use like a hydraulic press and press the silver, and you used to polish it and make all this like handmade stuff. I did that for 2 years, I think, and then that company went bust. I signed on the dole, coincident at the same time, like when Steve Gill moved to town, the company went bust. So it was perfect timing for me to be on the dole and like claiming, I think I used to get like 50 quid a week on the dole. And then I'd ride with Steve every day, and that dole money was my wages basically. And that's actually how I started my pro career. They approached me, Azonic it was at the time, and they were like, oh, how much money do you want to ride? You know, I said, I want to do it professionally. And they're like, well, how much money are we talking? And I was like, I was living at home, didn't have any outgoing. So I was like, well, if you can match my dole money and allow me to sign off the dole, so I didn't have to be chased by them every single day, you know, like on my back to try and get a job. I was like, if you match that money, give me, as I say, 50 quid a week, so £200 a month, I'll just ride for you. And then that was it. It's like they gave me free bikes. I got 200 quid a month. But I was living at home. It's back like late 90s. Didn't have no outgoings, and you know, it's just money to go and buy a bottle of Coke and some sweets and go up street riding all day and come home.
So that was 2002, is that right?
Yeah, 2001, 2002, something like that. Yeah.
So okay, so
I was gonna say my first deal before that was just like it was with Curtis Bikes. Was obviously I helped develop and sort of test those bikes back in the day. I rode for them for quite a few years, and
they're locals here, aren't they?
Yeah, they're just literally, well, they were like half hour down the road, so they were like my first like proper sponsor for bikes, but the actual first professional, you know, earning a wage from riding a bike was from Azonic Hotlines at the time.
Around here, there seems to be an awful lot of bike industry. Like it seems like you're perfectly placed.
Yeah.
We're in Frome. Is that where you grew up as well?
Yeah. So I originally was in Warminster, but I moved from there when I was like 4 years old to Frome. So I've lived here. 42 now, as I said. So yeah, since 4 years old. So
it seems like all the stars sort of aligned. You're in the right place, surrounded by the right people, and those opportunities that were in front of you, you just grabbed them.
Yeah, and obviously a big part of the career was the whole Future Publishing MBUK days, and they're literally 20 minutes down the road as well. So it was like a massive hub going on around here, and there's a few instrumental people as well. As I say, when Steve moved to Frome, Nick Larson was local as well. Literally his old unit is 5 minutes from where we are now. You know, that's the whole sort of Charge Bikes and GT Cannondale, sort of all that sort of tie-in was here. And yeah, there's quite a lot going on around here.
I remember looking in the magazines, and like, you know, you get, in MBUK in particular, you get the adverts. So was it Stiff?
Yeah.
And then you'd get Orange Bikes, and you'd see the Patriot, and you'd see the, was it like 555 or something like that, like, or the
222, wasn't it?
222, yeah. And then Ellsworth Bikes. Whenever I saw the advert for Ellsworth Bikes, I always wanted an Ellsworth. And like all these sort of bike brands, they were so far away from me, and like to me, it was just like, and they were expensive as well. So to me, it was like something I couldn't even dream of. And I think I ended up with a Saracen from Halfords, and that was my full suspension bike, and it weighed a ton, and it turned up, and the pedals had been like cross-threaded on backwards because they'd assembled it better. And but I think to me, like I'd look at those bikes in the magazines and look at people like yourself riding them and think like, just dream that I could do that one day. Like that was as far as my dreams went. It's like I just wish I could own one of those bikes. And for you,
Just have
you
one
were
in
like,
your collection. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you're a bit older than me, and like you were kind of already in the scene when I was still reading the magazines, like dreaming of it. It must have been so cool back in the day just to have that surround. Did you feel like the buzz was around you, or do you think everybody was experiencing that at the time?
I think kind of everyone was experiencing that. As you say, like it was, I always wanted, I remember like back in the day when I was riding like that Mongoose and stuff, I'd ride some trails and I used to watch like the Dirt video back, you know, one of the old school videos, and I was like Jason McCroy, and there's like a trail I used to ride, and I used to sort of, it's back when it was all like summer and dusty, and I was like dreaming, well not dreaming, but just imagining and, you know, being Jason riding down this trail. And I still ride that trail, like it's on my local cross country loop, and I think, oh my God, like think back 25, 30 years ago to what I've done since then, and it does give me like a real buzz and a sense of accomplishment from, you know, turning that childhood, you know, dream into what it's, you know, what's happened. You know, it is really cool.
Did you know the path you wanted to go down when you were younger? Did you think that that's a style of riding I want to do, or was it just a case of you fell into a certain type of riding?
I think like I was always there's so many different athletes out there that are so good at one style of riding, but I could honestly say like I wouldn't have done what I've done for the amount of time if I was just stuck in one discipline. Like I'll just say like G, for instance. I know he's a downhill rider, but he does obviously ride other stuff. He's a great all-round rider, but I mean, I couldn't have just stuck like he's done downhill for X number of years. Like I sort of flitted from street, free ride, dirt jump, downhill. You know, I've tried a bit of everything. Yeah, I wasn't the best rider at one single discipline, but I think as an asset to a company who's like, you know, they've launched a cross country bike, so you can go out and do some cross country on this, or they've done a dirt jump bike and you can go and get some, you know, content on that, or they've done a free ride. It's just being sort of universal, like pretty good across the board rather than outstanding in one discipline. I suppose it's always worked out pretty good for me.
Okay, let's talk Fourcross. So like Fourcross, British champion in 2014.
Yeah, British champ. Yeah, overall British champ and national champion. Yeah, so
wow.
Yeah, I got the jersey. So that was like, I have raced lots over the years, but like the Fourcross thing was, I just did a race out of the blue and I really enjoyed it. It was like super friendly, and the organisation, like it was really tight knit, and it was back when we just started having a young family, so it was just like I had the time to go and do it, and the boys were sort of enjoying being there, so we were just spending a lot of time sort of traveling, going to these fun events, having a really good time, and I was doing all right, and it was just good for like sponsors, and it gives a bit of sort of weight to what you're doing. You know, if you're winning national races, national champion, it's just good to have in the CV. And I wanted to do it, and I sort of ticked it off. But I'm not someone who keep chasing the same thing. Like if I've done it, I've sort of ticked that box. I'd like to move on to the next thing, be it, you know, whatever it is, not necessarily racing, but I've raced. Yeah, I've done like big, like the Taxco, Mexico, like downhill races back in the day, and just obviously all the slope style events and dirt jump competitions all over the world. And sometimes I am, as I say, I am competitive, but is sort of on the back burner now.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was going to say, because like I've known you for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now, and I don't see you as a competitive person, but like your results say otherwise. And like to be a champion in Fourcross, there can't be many more sports that are as physically competitive as that. Like most of the other disciplines, you're timing yourself against the clock, and particularly in mountain bikes. So where's that come from? Like why are you so competitive on a bike?
I don't know, it's weird. Like I am like weirdly competitive, but it might not come across, but like if we went go-karting, I would literally have to be the fastest person. I really would. Like it would just, I don't know, it's just a drive, I think, from my parents. And I think,
would you be?
maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's usually like I went for a stag do recently, and there was a bunch of younger guys there, and they were really fast, and I was like, shit. I said to my missus, like, I want to win this.
Yeah.
And there was all these promises that I'd win, and we started off, and I was like third in the first heat, and like I started creeping up, and then in the last race I was leading and like setting the fastest times, and then I made one mistake, and there's this guy that did it as his hobby, go-karting, and he caught me up like right on the last lap, literally last corner, and I was second. I was like super gutted.
Yeah.
But I think yeah, like I say, I'm not competitive, but I am, I suppose. Like recently, like last month, Malvern's did their race there. I won the e-bike downhill, and I set the fastest time in the enduro, and then I just got pipped, I think, on the last stage, and I come second in that. So it's still like the fire's still there, but I'm not really interested in racing. Like I like to do it because, again, as I say, it gives you some weight, and it shows that you can do it if required. But I want to ride my bike for fun these days and do stuff I enjoy rather than, racing and chasing stuff. And it's just so time consuming, the practice, the traveling, the expense, blah blah blah. And like my goals are different these days.
You say goals are different now. Like when you like competing and riding bikes for your job was how you made your money. Like how much were you money focused? Like how important was it that you were getting the money coming in as opposed to just enjoying riding bikes and winning? Like was money did that come to your mind when you were riding?
No, I think I've always had like a good base sort of income, sort of salary. So that was always like I'd kind of earned my money, and that was always bonuses. And to be fair, like I'd do some contests, and you'd like place podium or whatever, and you'd be like, shit, I just won 500 quid for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just it was never like, oh, what's the prize pot before I'd left the front door. It would genuinely be like a surprise, like how much money you'd earn. And as I say, like I wasn't too fussed because I always like had that salary. Yeah. So it was just bonuses. And it was nice, like on some of the bigger teams would get like win bonuses. So like prize match. So if you won 500 quid, you'd get 500 quid paid from your sponsors, so it would turn into 1,000, and that sort of thing is obviously a good incentive.
Was there any race or any competition in particular that you won loads of money in?
There's been, I remember one of the best, the most fun result was that Taxco Urban downhill thing. I think there was loads of World Cup guys there, like Bernard Kerr and like there's some fast boys there, and I was like pretty close on the first run to like Bernard, and that I was like this could be quite good, and then I pushed harder on the second run and crashed, and I was like gutted. So it's just results like that. And I think like slopestyle wise, best result was I think the white style for like international results was the white style, like the snow event is like a free ride contest on snow. I think Chopper won, and Andre Laconde was second. I was third. I had like quite a good run on that, but that was probably the best international result. And then I've actually lost count of like podiums and stuff from UK events because I've done loads of stuff. But again, that's like lots of podiums and free ride down urban downhill and a few downhill races and all that stuff, mixed up.
Yeah. Do you reckon it's harder to earn a living now as a pro, or at least maybe like free rider type rider? Is it more difficult now, or like noughties, late 90s, early noughties? Was that the heyday?
Yeah, for sure. I think like social media has definitely changed the way I think companies look at people and riders, because if you got a rider that wants a salary and lots of money coming from a company, whereas you'll get someone who do better stuff than you and just post clips on Instagram for free. Yeah. But what they're not thinking about is the long term, not damage, but like what they've got a service which they're given to a company for free, and it's not making them money, and it's damaging what other people can. Do you get what I'm trying to say? You're offering
it's diluting the industry.
Yeah, it's diluting. It's like photographers doing free photos, whereas professional photographers trying to make a living, and it's that whole thing for sure. And yeah, and social media is you know, just stuff just comes online every single day, rather than you know, back in the day we'd work for a video part for 3 months and it'd come out on VHS and everyone would be like, whoa, did you see that? Rather than like, oh, did you see yesterday so and so did this on Instagram?
Do you think a lot of people though, like let's say younger people trying to get into bike media, like for them to look at you for you to say, oh, people doing stuff for free, maybe that's devaluing the industry to some extent.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that it's necessary though to get into the industry to almost
For sure.
sell your soul to the devil in a way?
Yeah, 100%. You need to stand out from the crowd and show what you can do, but it's like if you never, it's like catching a fish. You know, if you once you've caught it, you need to then reel it back in and like use it rather than just like here's another.
Good analogy there.
Yeah, oh, you like that? But that's what it feels like. It's like you want to get on board that train once. Is you know, you don't want to just keep doing it for free.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're never going to make any money, and nor will the next person or the next person.
It's true. Wildest experiences from mountain biking. Where have been your wild experiences, or what have you done? Like what?
So some cool stuff from back in the day. I think the best experience that I ever had on a trip was we did a 3-week shoot out in Australia for GT Mongoose. The whole like CSG thing. It was me, Dave Wardell, possibly Chris Hackrig, I can't remember, but we'd been out in Australia for 3 weeks, traveling all over, riding with all of the Australian guys, Kavara, Kareni, Mick Hanna, Tracy Hanna, all those guys. It was a really cool trip. And on the last day, we actually got treated to a private seaplane, which flew out to, on the Barrier Reef. We had our own island out there. Wow. So we flew out there in a seaplane. We even had a waiter on hand serving us fruit. We were like snorkeling. It was like living like a billionaire for a day. And then the seaplane took off again and whisked us off back. That was like probably one of the coolest things I've ever had. And that was just like a thank you from them for working after 3 weeks filming and shooting like every day. And other stuff, again, that was GT Hyundai. We stayed in Glen Eagles, like the posh hotel up there, for like a motor like press event where we'd take the motor press on mountain bikes at Fort William. So we'd fly from a helicopter would land at Glen Eagles, pick us up, fly us to Fort William. Then we'd ride mountain bikes there with a press and a motor and press, and then catch a helicopter back from Fort William to Glen Eagles, and then have a posh dinner with like you had to wear a suit for dinner, and it's crazy. But yeah, just some stuff like that, and obviously the whole Hyundai, you know, free cars, and you know, back in the heyday, it was like on Oakley and all that big money and free cars, and as I say, like all those Swiss hotels.
You can use another fish analogy there if you like.
Could do, couldn't I?
There's a fish out of water. Okay, so I said here, what does this fit? No, we'll skip that. Risk taking. So again, we've got competition. We've spoken about competition side of it. Then free riding in particular, risk taking is it's a massive part of it. Isn't it? And it's something that you seem to have grown quite comfortable with. Do you still see what you do as taking risks?
Yeah, for sure. But it's, I know it sounds a bit cliche, but it's calculated risk massively. And I always think, like, there's some stuff like from back in the day, like I had a big crash back in like 2002 where I broke my back and ankles and stuff, like on a big step down.
Wow.
I go back to that spot and I'm like, I can do this. But then I think now, like, what is the point? Like, it's got way more, like, it can damage me. It can probably end my career if it went wrong. It could end, you know, I don't want to sound brutal, but it could end my life. You know, it's like, that's like calculating risk. Like, I know I can do it, but I don't want to do it. But it can happen, you know, on anything. It could happen on a small drop, you know, 4-foot drop, 5-foot, you know, you could go over the handlebars, smash your face. Yeah. But it's just knowing when, why, and how, you know, I think that's the thing I learned. I think Steve Pete was saying, like, how to make a long career. It is like knowing when to turn that volume up to 11 and when to wind it back to 3. You know, like if you're on a shoot with an amateur photographer, then you ride at, level 5, but if you're riding a pro, you got a front cover shot and he's a really talented photographer, then turn it up to 11, you know, like, or, you know, contest, or and even that applies to contests. Like if you're doing some dirt jump comp in the UK, you might ride at level 8, but if you're riding a big slopestyle event for an international thing, you wind it up to 11, you take risks. But it's always that balance of staying in one piece. You know, if you're constantly getting hurt, knocked out, concussion, broken bones as well, you think about what it's actually going to do to you in later life. You don't really think about it then, but that's something like I think I've been more aware of as I get older. You think like, shit, I can't hardly fucking bend down and put my socks on, or like you bash your head. It's not just even smashing your head, it's like the impact of landing stuff. It can be a smooth, well, you know, a drop, and you just wham, bam, bam, bam. The constant, without even smashing your head into the floor, the constant knocking of your head is something, you know, you definitely do need to think about.
There's something that gets spoken about a lot in like sports like rugby, for example, but you don't hear it as much in biking, do you? But
it's definitely there.
It's got to be a factor.
Yeah, and I think there's quite a lot of people who do smash their head, particularly like dirt jump and the free ride guys. There's been, I think it's definitely coming more into the light now, you know. And it's something you do need to think about. Like my body is pretty, you know, I've broke a lot of bones and had some harsh crashes over the years, and it you know, your mum's always like, or your dad is like, yeah, you need to look after your knees, you'll miss them when they're gone. And they weren't kidding, you know. Like hips, back and elbows, knees, ankles, even just like posture from ride, you know, it's not a good recipe.
I need to give you your knee pads back. I just
do.
I forgot my knee pads today when we rode. Yeah, actually, let's talk about that. So today was my first time at Wind Hill, and I've seen it so many times on video and seen shots of you there. I think nothing really prepares you for the scale of it until you're actually stood there in front of some of the features. And like they're features that they've grown up as you've grown up in the area, haven't they? I mean, I guess, have things grown as you've progressed through your riding as well?
No, I think Wind Hill, like having that on my doorstep, I helped out with like building and you know, having that.
The dog's currently just humping Chris's leg just out of shot right now, by the way.
He's keen. Yeah, having Wind Hill on my doorstep is like a massive part to helping me like stay where I am in my career. Having that big sort of pro line, the jumps, and going that big, I tried to ride there a couple of times a week just to keep my eye in on like the biggest stuff, because I think as soon as you stop hitting those size features, or you know, you're just gonna lose, I think, your confidence and the ability to ride that sort of thing, to be fair. And it's huge, and I love, you know, I know people probably think you ride there way too much or whatever, but when you have a park like that, I can literally see it from my bedroom window. It's like, why would I want to travel a 3-hour round trip to Wales and pay 50 quid to ride when I can ride there for free and just do, you know, I can get as much from that ride as I would do going to Wales or something.
Definitely. So I'm looking at the big jumps you're riding, big drops, and I'm thinking that to me feels out of reach. How would a rider progress from perhaps riding the more kind of average size tabletops that we're all kind of used to at most trail centres, most uplift places in the UK, and then how do you get to that stage where you start to contemplate these big gaps, these big drops?
I think it's just like the proper like the ladder process. You know, you are literally going from 5 foot to 7 foot to 10 foot to 15 to 20, and then you just get comfortable at a level, I suppose. Like for me, like riding a 5 foot tabletop is maybe the same experience as someone, you know, would get from riding over like a speed bump or like a dropping off a curb. Like to me, like riding that stuff, you know, a 5 foot drop off is, you know, I don't want to sound big headed, but it is like riding off a curb. Like it's that much brain process for me is, and then you just learn to, that 10 foot drop becomes, you know, it's just working on progression, I suppose, but working at a nice pace, not getting scared and just thinking, well, that was easy, let's try the next one. And until you find your limit, that's kind of how I did have that massive crash, was finding my limit. And that was 2002, that crash where I broke my back, and that was probably the biggest feature I ever rode, and that was like crazy. It was like, as you know, I'm saying it's 2002, but that was like 52 feet like gap and the drop was the same, so it was massive. It was probably, would have been one of the biggest features, like from you know, it would have been way ahead of its time if it was landed.
Yeah.
But unfortunately it wasn't, and it was just finding that next. It's going for it now. It's finding that you know, next level to push it, and just staying smooth, not getting scared, and just working your way up. Really.
Sure. You've been between quite a few brands. A lot of people tend to, I don't know, I'm not saying a lot of people, a lot of riders I know, I associate them with a particular brand.
Yeah.
But you seem to have sort of chopped and changed through your career. Was there a reason for that?
I think because it was like the early days of like the whole free ride dirt jump thing. It was quite a testing times for some brands, and I think like a lot of brands were sort of jumping on the bandwagon. Oh yeah, we're going to do free ride and dirt jump bikes and stuff, and they'd sort of realise, shit, people don't actually buy a lot of these bikes. So you'd sort of get onto a team and they'd be launching, trying to push these new dirt jump bikes and free ride bikes, and then all of a sudden they'd realise like it wasn't working out, and then the next brand would be like, oh yeah, we're going to start doing this, and it'd be like slopestyle bikes, and then you'd ride them for a bit, and then that fate. I think it was basically, I was like riding the wave of like these new bikes coming out all the time, then they'd be like, oh, this is not working, this chop and change. It wasn't like any other reason really, you know. And a lot of those contracts were, I think these, you know, you were lucky to get like a two or 3 year contract back in the day, and usually it was like an annual contract that would get renewed, and as I say, it would just be budgets like drying up basically. So
okay, so then when did e-bikes start creeping into your sort of mental space?
So I was quite an early adopter, to be fair. I think it was when I rode for Cannondale, probably 15, 16, maybe 17. I can't quite remember.
Wow.
But back then, I saw these e-bikes, and Clive Goslin, who was like one of the marketing managers for Cannondale back then, I was like, yeah, I really want to get on board with the e-bike thing, start riding e-bikes and pushing them quite hard. And it was the Matera back then, and I got on this Cannondale Matera, bearing in mind I'd ridden normal mountain bikes for like 15 years. I got on it, I was like, whoa, this thing is heavy. This thing doesn't roll very fast. It had the original Bosch Mark 3, like Gen 3, is it, or Gen 2, I can't remember, with the small chainring. And that motor was notoriously draggy above the limit. It was like you'd put it in reverse. As soon as you went over 60 mile an hour, it was sort of like you were put an anchor out the back. It was that draggy. And I was coming into like jumps that I'd easily clear on a mountain bike, and like casing the shit out of them, and like not making it, and just feeling really like I've promised, like I want to push these bikes, but I can't ride it. And then something almost clicked. I think I was almost like trying to ride it too hard, putting too much effort in. Whereas with an e-bike, I think you actually do less. You let the bike, it's almost like motorbike, like motocross bikes. If you watch those freestyle guys, they come into massive jumps in like third gear, just like a little rev, like, bruh, and they just go, what? And it's the same, I think, applies with an e-bike. You just don't have to preload them as much, and you just let the bike do quite a lot of the work. And it's actually, once you get in tune with it, it's insane. Like I get on a normal bike now, and I'm like, this is so sketchy. It feels so light. It's so skitty on the floor. It's not planted, and there's no grip. And it's, for me, like off-road now, any, you know, we've heard it all before, but an e-bike is definitely the right tool for mountain biking. For myself, for what I do, I think it is like, it's a far superior tool to the latest trail bike, you know, normal mountain bike out there. If there was a side-by-side, 100%, I'd always grab an e-bike.
Well, center of gravity is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just, as I say, it's just, I've never really had any sketchy jumps on an e-bike. It's just so balanced. And as I mentioned, suspension, low down grip, yada, 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 you know, we've heard it. But it is, you know, if you haven't tried one, you need to get on it.
I forgot about those early Bosch Motors with the tiny front chainring. Like I remember being on a dirt shoot with Jonesy many years ago in South Wales. And we rode to a waterfall that's been used in one of the Batman films. I don't know if you've ever been there. And you can go around the back of the waterfall.
Right.
We did a night shoot there for exposure. But I remember trying to get back from that particular location. It was slippy, it was muddy, it was like a nightmare, the worst place to ride a bike. and my front chainring just got clogged up with mud.
Chainsaw.
It just it was just like sucking the chain in.
Yeah.
And it took me forever to get back.
Yeah.
And I remember getting back to the car park, the most exhausted I've ever been, I think, on a shoot. And it was in the middle of the night as well. So that's trauma. You've literally just reignited that trauma there.
Yeah, they definitely changed their ways a lot now. I think all the recent Bosch stuff's really good.
Yeah, they seem to be leading the way in terms of many brands. Although we've got SRAM coming into the e-bike world now.
Could be interesting. Yeah, I think SRAM stuff I like the way they work. I don't know, they seem to have been quite a late. I think Shimano have been way ahead.
Yes.
Of SRAM, was usually the other way around. I think SRAM's always a bit forward thinking, whereas Shimano take their time, develop stuff, and then release it. But it seems to be the other way around a little bit. I've not, it's only literally came out like yesterday or something, so I've not read too much about it. But as I say, Shimano were always the late arrival to something, whereas it seems like SRAM is the other way around. So time will tell.
The SRAM thing seems to be a partnership with Bros as well. So I don't know if they've. I guess with their knowledge that combined with the knowledge from Bros, that's quite a good way of approaching it, especially if you're fairly late to the party, I guess.
Yeah. No, they've been a big player in it. Yeah. I was going to, pass comment.
Moving on. Autoshift. Have you ridden Autoshift bikes?
No, but I actually, I kind of have. I developed it probably 2 years ago in my back garden with a zip tie on my cassette.
No way.
Because you can literally, you think about an e-bike, you got a front freewheel, and obviously you got a rear freewheel, the standard like freewheel on your hub. So if you zip tie your cassette to your spokes, you have a fixed rear wheel that then drives the chain.
Yeah.
So when you're freewheeling, the rear cassette is moving, and the front it's a moving chain, so you can change gear without pedaling.
Whoa.
So if you want to try it for free, there's a little hack. Costs you 1 pence for a zip tie. But bear in mind, when you're going downhill and stuff, your chain is going to be constantly revolving, but you can change gear without pedaling.
That sounds like a massive accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, I've done it when it's a hack for like if your free wheel explodes on your rear wheel and you don't get any drive, but you can zip tie the cassette to the spokes because of course you got your front free wheel, the motor sort of spooling round. But it's an interesting one just to try. It's pretty fun.
You've blown my mind there, which I didn't think would happen today. Okay, so let's move on, seeing as we're on e-bikes right now. So you went from riding as a pro rider, and did the EMBN thing creep in straight after you riding as a pro? Did one thing lead into the other?
So I did a shoot with Steve when I was riding for Cannondale, obviously Steve Jones from EMBN, and we got on obviously really well, and he was amazed by like what I was doing, and they mentioned they were looking for a presenter, and I was like, wow, maybe that's a pretty cool, it's the next step on from riding. Because I think as a pro rider, it's really, really hard to be like, the end of your career is like, you don't want to feel not wanted and like scrape. Is the last thing I wanted to do was scrape around and be riding, for some crappy company on bikes that I didn't like, and just sort of scraping the barrel. I personally wanted to end my career as a pro rider rather than have it ended for me. And I think that's what a lot of professional riders really struggle with, especially when they get older, is having that job they've worked and put their body on the line for. Suddenly it's like you're in a relationship and suddenly it's cut off basically, and you go back to almost normality, and you're sort of working a normal 9 to 5 in Sainsbury's or whatever. It's that struggle. And I think with the EMBN job, it was just like, this is the next step. It was like, it was a good move for me at the time, definitely a good stepping stone in my career.
Yeah. And what's it like to be a presenter there? Because we obviously get to see it from the YouTube perspective, and we see all the glamour and the shiny bit, should we say? But it must be quite a hard life still.
Yeah, it's still pretty full on. As I say, I enjoyed it. It was good times for sure, and you got a lot of kit, as you mentioned. You live a pretty good life from it, but there is a lot of stuff behind the scenes, a lot of time traveling and script writing and late nights, as I say. And it was definitely not more work than expected, but it's a lot of actual. You don't realize how much effort goes into making those videos. There's a lot of time, and you know you're spending 2 days maybe shooting on something for a 10-minute video, and there's a lot, as I say, all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And even just like writing a script, remembering the script, and for me, like presenting wasn't my most natural thing, like presenting to camera, and you do get over it, but like talking to someone with a camera in your face whilst you're trying to remember lines, thinking about what you're saying whilst trying to remember the next line, it's just a massive circle going, and it literally will fry your brain if you're doing it all the time.
So during COVID, I found myself without any work, and I wanted to keep myself busy. And myself as a creator, camera person, I thought the best way to do that was to start filming myself, start making my own videos.
Yeah.
And so I started a little YouTube channel. And I suddenly realized that my short-term memory was absolutely appalling. Like I wrote a script, had it on my phone. I thought, right, read a paragraph. Okay, read the paragraph, right. Press record. And instantly it was gone from my head. And I do take after take after take before I was sort of borderline happy with it. And it probably wasn't until my 5th, 6th, 7th video that I actually started to find what worked for me. But like for you, joining a YouTube channel with very little experience in doing that kind of thing, it must have been like in at the deep end.
Yeah, definitely, because some of those guys like Cy Richardson, for example, has been there for, I don't know, like 10 plus years, and they do that as a daily, and you watch those guys on camera and you're like, holy, like that is some talent there. And it is a definite art. And for me to come from being by myself in the woods for like 15 years, speaking crap to my mates and riding every day, to being in front of a camera for a big, like the biggest cycling like media company is in the world. It's definitely
it's got to be, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is in the world. It was a huge thing for me, and you do feel a little bit like, you keep messing up lines and you feel a bit, crap at doing your job, but you do suddenly get better and better and better. And it, as I say, it was a good stepping stone for to the next stage, to be fair, and enjoyed all my time there.
Did you come up with a process to remember lines? Was there a way that worked for you?
I don't know. I used to have like good days. Some days you could smash out like one take and it'd be word for word, and then some days it would be like 10, 15 takes, and you'd feel like, oh my god, I want to go home. I'm not enjoying this at all. Yeah. But there isn't really a process. It's just literally training your brain for memory, but as I say, it's just that whole cycle of remembering, speaking, but then you've got to remember to deliver in a energetic, happy, mood, rather than like thinking, shit, what's my next line? And it's really, really hard. Whilst you've got 3 people watching you, a camera in your face, you might be in the street with 20 people behind watching you, or it is really, really hard presenting.
That's what I'd struggle with. I don't know if I'd be able to cope when there's multiple people there behind the camera.
If you're like in a factory, or as I say, out on the street, and you've got people watching, there's a camera over there, what are they filming? They come and stand behind you, and you're fluffing up take after take after take. That's like a lot of pressure sometimes.
I bet. And then working in the studio as well, when you're working with somebody next to you, I suppose you get used to working with the person that you're presenting with. But there must be moments when you think you're ready for the next line, and they completely put you off or send you down another route.
It's always like the shows and those videos what you're shooting together is always really good fun. And the shows are super funny. You'll see sometimes you'll cut back in and your face will be red and your eyes will be watering where you've been laughing so much because you've tried taking it for the 7th time because there's a funny word in the...
What's the one that stands out to me? Was it Malabia? Who's based in Malabia?
So, or Bear Bikes. So it was just like, it's called, it's not Malabia, but it sounded quite, suspicious. And I think we were just like having a bit of fun with that. And it took us 20 takes, I think, because you'd get it out and then someone would just burst out laughing and then you'd have to cut. And then, they're based on a small island. It's Malabia, I think it is.
Okay.
But it's obviously can be twisted.
Okay, so now we're up to almost current day, Highbike.
Yeah.
So the opportunity obviously came at Highbike, which you seem to have grabbed with both hands.
Yeah.
What's it like? I mean, following in the footsteps of some pretty big names as well.
Yeah, so obviously Sam Pilgrim was a big part of that, and obviously he's a good friend as well. So we used to ride together a lot, and I could obviously see what the bikes were like, and they've been in it since the start. You know, I think it's over 10 years now producing e-bikes, and the chance came up to work with those guys as an ambassador for them, and as you say, grabbed it with both hands. And really sound company. They're really, you know, ahead of the game. Like, we went out to the factory out in Schweinfurt and seen what they've got in store, and the factory was literally mind-blowing. I think it was like 8 kilometers of space on the floor, and that was just production. It wasn't like storage of bikes to sell. This was like their production and like design and all that stuff. Is 8 kilometers footprint. It's like massive. It's like, yeah, it's like a trading estate in the UK, and it was like the biggest unit you've ever seen, and it blew my mind. Like the factory tour, it was crazy.
I like the fact that Highbike have such a big range of bikes.
Yeah,
like there's literally a bike for everyone.
Yeah, it's like literally you could kit out your gran, your auntie, your little sister. You know, there is bikes for every single person there.
Combo.
Yeah. Oh, you know what I mean? You've got bikes that cost £2,000, trekking bikes with mud guards, but you've also got like a 200mm travel downhill bike kitted out of Olin's and top level kit. You know, it's not. So it's a brand that has, bikes for everyone at every sort of budget as well, you know.
Yeah.
As cheap as e-bikes will get anyway.
So you joined the likes of Tom Cardy and Cara Beale.
Yeah.
You've met up with them a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, so it's quite cool having those guys on board. And Rob Williams, who's been doing a lot of the EWS races, he's, you know, got some good results, and he's been going pretty full time with it. And Tom and Cara, obviously good friends as well, and spend a lot of time with those and doing a few video projects. And yeah, it is like, they call it like this family series, and it is quite, you know, a family sort of thing, you know. It's quite close knit, which is really cool. It's
pretty cool that you can now earn a living doing bike media as a YouTuber, I guess. I mean, not many people like the word influencer, but Tom and Cara seem to have really done a good job of that side of it.
Yeah.
It's quite inspiring to see that they can do that, but it does get a lot of flack.
Yeah.
And what's your view of that side of bike media?
I think it's cool. Like, it's relatable to a lot of people. Like, that's one thing that I think is really good, is if you watch anyone who's like amazing at doing, it's like watching, you know, a top motocross rider like Pastrana, you know, or someone like that ride. It's second nature to them. But if you're a beginner, it feels so out of reach, and you just watch Joe Average ride like around the woods on a motocross bike, you'd be like, yeah, that's me. And how they progress is relative to like how, you know, it's just relatable.
Yeah.
Rather than like feels out of reach, which is good.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when I see people progressing as well, like to see what Cara has done since, I guess, would it be lockdown that she sort of properly started?
It was before that, I think.
But anyway, but not that long ago, to go from, I don't know, working as a nurse, I think, and then to turn this into a full-time job, and then to progress whilst filming it at the same time. Like, it takes some guts to put yourself out there like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I think what Cara's done is amazing, and it's I think the whole females coming into the sport, she's really helped all that side of it, and it's getting bigger and bigger as well. Like the amount of women that ride now, I think, and it's because of people like that as well. I think it's put it more in the limelight, and you know, husbands and boyfriends want to take their wives and girlfriends out to ride as well. It becomes accessible for everyone, and I think again, e-bikes have helped that. You know, it gets everyone out there together. Like, I know for a fact, like, my wife wouldn't come out with me, and I wouldn't be taking the boys out on dragging them up hills on tow ropes or child seats on the front if I just had a normal bike.
Yeah, I feel the same, and I think it's a great leveler. Like, to me, it brings everybody up to that sort of similar level. And back in the day when you'd be out on your mountain bikes and maybe doing a cross-country ride or something like that, there's always somebody that's at the back of the group having a hard time. And it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's eliminated it, but it's definitely made it fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I ride with my dad. He's like approaching 70 now, and like we can still go out and ride the same places at the same speed. We can chat to each other going up the hills. We're not blowing at our ass and feeling sick, and he's not. miles behind me and I'm miles in front. It's just sociable, and it's just great to be able to share the same rides and go the same places together. As as I say, like I can with the whole family now. It's amazing.
So we had a little look at your new Haibike earlier that you've got.
Yeah.
It's an impressive bit of kit.
Mm-hmm.
I've not seen a bike that burly, shall we say, in quite a long time in terms of an e-bike. So, but that's the bike that you feel is the right one for you.
Yeah, at the minute, the free ride one, so the Enduro 8 free ride is 180mm travel front and rear, coil rear, and dual crown fork up front. And for me, it's actually like mind blowing. I think I said to you earlier when we were riding up like quite a tech climb over roots and that, and I was just like mind blown that I can actually be riding that big travel bike up that trail and then be sending it on the way down off big stuff and have all that travel and confidence on a big burly bike. And it just seems right for me, like I'm lucky enough to have quite a few different bikes from Highbike. Like I've got all the lightweight e-bikes and like mid-travel bikes and a good mixture of bikes. But currently for me, that Enduro 8 free ride for what I enjoy doing is like, one of the best tools for the job for sure.
Has the bike development cycle, do you think it's plateaued a bit? Do you think it's leveled off? Because there was a time when you saw lots of weird and wonderful things coming out on e-bikes, and it's almost like the industry was sort of finding its feet. But now it seems like most of the brands have kind of found themselves at a similar place. Do you think it's kind of leveled off?
Yeah, I think obviously we've got the introduction of like the big full fat bikes, lightweight e-bikes is quite interesting. And then you've got all this stuff from Shimano, like the free shift and Autoshift, and SRAM coming in is obviously going to inject a big sort of possible change to the market. But I guess the next big thing is got to be battery technology. Like that's the main thing that is holding the progression back, I think. And in terms of tech, like it's just the weight and the size of the battery. Once that gets eliminated or changed, I think we're going to see pretty cool stuff.
I think we're already seeing it, aren't we? That sort of next level of, is it battery density they talk about? And the efficiency of the battery?
Yeah. So like the size and what you can get out of it. Yeah, basically. So I thought there's some talk about some crazy like size of a memory card battery that can like be, I don't know, that's like where it needs to be. I think if you could get something like that, like memory card battery plug in, and
there's a lot of people right now that are thinking, do I get a what would I call a semi-skim bike or a full fat bike?
Yeah.
And there's definitely that balance at the moment where there's not a massive difference between the weight of some of the lighter weight full fat bikes. I know Orbea, for example, have been doing a pretty good job of making lighter weight full fat bikes. And then you've got the likes of Trek and Specialized that are creating the SL bikes.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody that was looking to perhaps, or thinking about getting one or the other?
I don't know. It's quite hard. I think like the recent release of, I think the early SL bikes weren't a good step, but I think the recent SL bikes, like the from Highbike, the SL range from Trek and Spec, and that are genuinely halfway houses between mountain bike and e-bike, whereas before the SL bikes were very, I would say, quarter of the way away from a mountain bike and 3/4 away from a full fat bike. They were quite underpowered, and the benefits weren't really that great of having those SL bikes. But I think now it's like, it depends where you've come from and what you want to do as well, and your weight. There's so many different variables. Like if you're a heavier rider and the type of trails you ride, then I would go full fat. But if you're like, you want to get loads of range, you're a lightweight rider, go for that SL bike. But I don't know. I think if you either go e-bike or you don't. And for me, I don't know. Like if someone's going to buy one, I'd say full fat.
Yeah,
I think, because you can always ride in eco mode. You can ride with it off if you want a good workout. But like eco mode is a base level. It's like driving a powerful motorbike. You always think, I wonder what it's like to have a bit more, whereas you might not quite experience that on a mid powered bike.
Yeah. The other thing that really stood out to me, I noticed it most when I rode the Trek Fuel EXE, with just how quiet the motor was.
Yeah.
and it's something that I didn't realize. I almost took it for granted, the noise of a motor, when I was on my regular e-bike, and it wasn't until I got on that that I suddenly went, so this is what it's all
Same
about.
here. Yeah, I think like, so that's like the TQ motor on that, and the Fazua on the like that I've got, the Ride 60 is super silent as well, and it's just other little things that you actually miss on a full fat e-bike. I think like being able to bunny hop up and like over stuff on the trail rather than like smash through it is something. Like I was even just like riding down the street and you bunny up on a curb, like on a full fat bike, just bunny up on a curb is an effort.
Yeah.
But on a bike like that, you're like, I can actually bunny hop up there easy. And it's just little, it makes the trail become a bit more alive on those mid-weight bikes rather than it's plus, it's two sides of a coin. Basically, you've got the insane speed and the grip that the full travel bike gives you, full power bike, but the lightweight bike is more, I don't want to say agile, but it's a bit more like skippy and a bit more energy. It makes a slower trail feel more alive, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely.
But is that what you want from your bike? That's the question in the you can answer.
Well, the way you run your suspension, I think you can make your bike feel pretty lively, to be honest. It's like rigid almost when I get on it.
Yeah.
Do you think we've got over that stigma that e-bikes are for sort of overweight, older, unfit people?
E-bikes are for people who want to ride for fun. Like, you 100%, like, not 100%, but you definitely don't get as fit from an e-bike as you do from riding a normal bike. But again, is that what do you ride your bike for fun or do you ride it for fitness? Like, I ride it for a bit of both. Like, it's probably 80% fun, 20% fitness is what I care for. And if I do want to ride and get fit, then I would probably just buy a cheap full suspension mountain bike and ride that. But I probably wouldn't ride it. It'd just be sat in the back of the shed getting rusty and dusty and covered in spiders. But I think, it's not, you don't need an excuse to ride an e-bike, and they're becoming way more commonplace now. I think even today, our session at Wind Hill, I would say there's probably more, it was pretty much 50-50 or even 60% e-bikes there today.
You're definitely seeing them a lot more out on the trail. And I mean, I saw it change maybe after COVID. I think it was the first time that I really saw that change. And then, the e-bike industry went mad. But now at most trail centres, it's definitely more than 50% e-bikes. I find.
For sure. Yeah, and I think, why wouldn't you? It's like, I don't know, I liken it to like digging a pond. Like, you've got a JCB there or you've got a fucking spade.
Pond with fish in it.
No, but like, it's the right tool for the job for the majority of people. Yeah, you can dig a pond with a spade, but why wouldn't you use a JCB to get the job done quicker and enjoy? Like, why wouldn't you want more of what you enjoy? Like, I say you can do 3 runs to 1. Like, you're gonna learn more. You're gonna learn more on your bike because you're riding the trail more. You can do repeated laps. You're not gonna get so tired. The thing that really changed it for me, I think, was an eye opener. Was like when I ride at a bike park or something. Your actual workout is on the way down, and having, that's the workout for me. It's on the downhill.
Yeah.
And your recovery is actually going up the hill, whereas it used to be the other way around. Like, it's the way it should be, I think.
Yeah,
I don't want to be blowing up my ass trying to climb the hill to struggle on a downhill run. I think your dog likes me.
He does like you. He's a big fan.
He's got his tongue out now as well.
Yeah,
lipstick.
Quick fire questions.
Yeah.
Jumps or drops?
Jumps.
Favorite country?
Spain.
E-bikes or uplift?
E-bikes.
Favorite trail?
Viagra Falls at Wind Hill, the Pro Line.
Yeah. Favorite bike park?
Wind Hill.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite bike park that's not Wind Hill?
Favorite bike park that is not Wind Hill. UK.
Anywhere.
I would say Revolution before it shut. That place was really good fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, Revs.
Revs was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really good. It's sad to see that place disappear.
It'll be back though,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I think so. It's meant to be, isn't it? It's just that everything there was so well made, and like, you pretty much could have faith if you made the jump, the next one would work, and the next one, rather than like thinking, shit, am I going to overshoot this or case it? It was just, everything just worked. It was so good.
Yeah. Do you want to backtrack on your favourite trail, or are you happy with?
I'm happy with.
Okay.
That's the line that I helped build. So it's like my of signature line. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Should that have been called the Chris Smith line?
Wind Hill, like, I don't want to talk too much about Wind Hill, but like Wind Hill was like massive. It was a spot that we used to ride back in the day, and then help like build it. I remember dragging whacker plates, from those trails from start to finish, like whacker plating them and digging, and Rocket and all the other guys and Rich and all the other trail builders and Rob, and we spent so much time, and it's a place that we used to ride 20 years ago that has become that's what it is today.
That definitely stood out.
Yeah.
I could see the work that's gone in there.
Yeah.
Sunday roast or your favourite takeaway?
Sunday roast.
Best potato format?
Oh, my missus makes them. Well, no, and her dad makes some amazing roasties. Yeah, like roast potatoes. Yeah, with like hot chili flakes and stuff. Yeah.
Best meal of the day?
Best meal of the day. God, your dog is getting so excited.
He is. You're his meal of the day.
Breakfast, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a decent breakfast set you up for the day.
Cars, vans, or pickups?
Vans.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had stupid cars over the years. Big, like Japanese, Jap import stuff like Toyota Supra turbos.
No way.
Imprezzas and Foresters, all that stuff. Totally impractical and just blow so much money in fuel. Might look cool, but just totally impractical. Again, with pickups, I've had all that stuff as well, like big pickups, and just useless. And like vans for me is just the way forward. I think it just, all your stuff's safe, it's secure, it's not getting wet, and it's not on view. It's just like, they're big and chunky and they're slow, but it's the tool for the job, I think.
Full face or open face?
Whoa. I think I get not flack, but I do wonder when my luck in an open face will run out, because I ride all that big stuff and just in an open face. But I think it's because I come from dirt jump, and you used to run like the potty style lids, and I think like Darren Bearclough back in the day sending all his big stuff in like some skate helmet, and a full face for me is just something I didn't spend a lot of time in, and it feels quite claustrophobic to me, especially with I think the newer helmets are a lot better now, but like back in the day when they were more like motocross style, your mouthpiece was like quite in view, and you stick a set of goggles on and you just feel so isolated from the bike. Like I like to be able to feel the speed in my face and hear, and I think once you put a full face on with goggles, it feels you're so like, it feels like you've got to put your head in a box, basically.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Gloves or no gloves?
Gloves.
Yeah?
Sure, yeah. And pretty rare you'll see me without gloves. Just purely it's the first point of contact, and I just hate getting sweaty and slippy grips. I think it's from a trials thing, and like your calluses as well. I've got pretty savage calluses even from wearing gloves, and I think if I didn't wear gloves, I think I'd have like balls of rock basically in my as my palm, and my missus complains enough about my rough hands.
Oh, brilliant. Is there anything that we've left out?
We didn't talk about injury, did we?
Injuries, yeah. So talking of not wearing gloves, that was actually weirdly quite a big injury for you when you squished your finger.
On that rock.
Yeah,
that was without gloves. But I think we literally jumped out of the van and gone to film it, and it was just a shitty freak crash. The way the bike landed on me, it was just pretty bad. It was just basically the bike looped out, and as I fell, the whole weight of the e-bike was on the end of the grip.
Yeah. And
it was like, it wasn't a flat grip, it was like a chamfered grip with a sharp, but the design of the end cap was like a chamfered, and it landed on the sharpest bit.
Yeah.
So like 25 kilos flipped upside down, dropped on the end of your finger. Isn't going to be much fun, and it wasn't. But like the injuries. Do you want to go top to bottom, head to toe?
Do it.
So both ankles got pins and plates in. That was from big crashes. One of them was a shitty 360 at a dirt jump competition out in France, and I just over-rotated, dabbed my foot down and ran over it with the back wheel, and just like snapped my foot and flipped around and just upside down, sweating in these barriers out in France, and managed to get. We had to drive home that same night with a broken ankle because it was so expensive for the operation in France. That was pretty savage. And the other ankle was from that back break-in incident where I fell like 52 feet onto my ass, and basically my foot folded underneath. Moving up from my ankles, say my back, I broke that in 2002 on that same crash, like 3 fractures in my lower back, like L2, L3 and L4, like split. They call it like a cheese wedge fracture, so it basically makes it into a triangle instead of a normal vertebrae shape. And that is like, it's not been too bad, but it was quite a scary like thing to do, break your back. It's pretty full on.
Did that have to be operated on?
No, but I was out of action probably a year with that.
Wow.
And then moving up from the back, I split my kidney, and that was bleeding internally massively. Like it was I lost a lot of blood internally, and they had to slice me open. I got a scar like from between my nipples down to above my pubes. Like they slashed that right open, and I had to pull that open and like stitch my kidney back together. And I had like obviously that big scar and stent tubes and a horrible operation.
Wow.
I won't make you sick with, involving getting the stent out, where they have to go through the end of your penis and pull the tubes out from the inside of you on a camera.
Whoa.
And it was pretty savage. That broken shoulder blade, broken elbows, broken wrists, broken fingers, concussions. Yeah, quite a lot of stuff. So over the years, but you can't ride a bike and do that stupid shit for 30 years and not expect to not get hurt. You're going to have some sort of injury. Like some riders like Sam and, Pilgrim, like, I don't know how, but he's not broke a bone for his whole career.
Wow.
Which is pretty insane. But I know even just physically, him at his age, he's 10 years younger than me, like 32, I think he is now. And he's still has, like, his back's pretty buggered and, and as I say, he's 10 years younger than me, so I don't know what sort of shape he'll be in another 10 years if he continues doing what he's doing. And that is like quite a big part of what I think about now sometimes, is like how much longer you want to keep pushing your body. Like, is your enthusiasm for riding going to wind down, or is it your body going to be saying like, I've had enough of this, I can't keep doing it? Like, I wake up in the mornings now and literally it takes me an hour, probably half hour, to like start moving properly. Like, you get up out of bed and you're like struggle to stand up, and you walk down the stairs and you've got to use a handrail, and your ankles hurt and your feet hurt walking down the stairs in the morning to go and have a cup of tea. And then the kids come down from waking up and you're like struggle to pick them up and helping them get ready for school. It's just like those little things that start creeping in. It's just like, and like, I do sometimes ask myself, like, what am I doing? You're like pulling wheelies down the hill into town at 30 mile an hour at 42 years old, and there's people going past you on the pavement who you went to school with grey hair and like bald. You know what I mean? Or just like old. I'm not old because it's not old at 42, but you're like, I don't know.
Age is just a number.
It is, but it's just like it. Before you know it, the last 20 years have gone pretty quick. In the next 20 years, it's just like you're going to be 50, 60 years old. Am I still going to be jumping the pro line and doing no-handers and bar spins and wheelies down the road? Like, I don't know. It's weird to think that far in front. But there's guys like, as I say, Steve Gill, he's 10 years older than me. And he's like 52 or 50. I don't want to offend him now, but he's definitely 50 plus. And he's still fucking amazing on the bike. And maybe, that'll be me. I don't know. It's just weird to know when it's going to wind down, whether you or your body is going to call it.
Well, you're still going strong, and judging by what I saw today at Wind Hill, it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon.
No. We should keep riding the way for as long as it goes, I suppose.
It's been a great chat. For anyone watching, where can they find you on the socials?
So Chris Smith Emtb on Instagram, and just Chris Smith again Emtb on Facebook, and Haibike's YouTube channels is the other place to find like the bigger projects. But give us a follow on those. That'd be appreciated.
That's been good, and you've managed to survive being humped by the dog multiple times.
I haven't checked my trousers yet. So done
and
something yet.
It's nearly dark outside. Don't know about you, but I'm pretty hungry.
Yeah, let's go grab some food.
Let's do it.
Nice one. Cheers for that.
Cheers, buddy.